Our next inductee this evening was part of some of the most successful Clarion football teams of the 1970s. He was part of a PSAC championship team, 2 PSAC West titles. He was a tight end and also, as I found out, apparently a pretty good place kicker as well. Ladies and gentlemen, Dan Kohley. And I am sorry that you have to now live up to the Rich Herman standard.
I was
right
just going
after
to say,
him.
Rich, you're really a tough act to follow.
But let's talk about this. So, as they always say in any sport, or especially in a football roster, the more things you can do, the harder it is to make you replaceable. And your freshman year, you had a skill, despite coming in as a tight end, that made you a little more valuable to the team. Let's talk about that.
All right. Well, when I come in as a freshman, Coach Jacks, I guess it was the second week of camp, opened up the kicking and the punting. He wanted to see what freshmen come in and what kind of added skills or things that they could do for the team. So I did try out for the kicking job. I didn't get the kicking job, but I did half decent in the tryout. Our kicker was there the previous year, and we got started into the season, and I guess it was about 3 or 4 games into the season, he got a case of the shanks. He was actually a soccer-style kicker, which back then really wasn't popular. It was more straight-on kick. So that week, he opened it up again, and we were over at the practice field, and there were 3 of us. The center was there, the holder, and we were taking turns kicking from extra points to other places on the field. And the whole time, Coach Jacks is standing there watching us, but he's talking to us, trying to get in our head, because the kicking side of it, there's a little bit of a head game. So by the end of the week, Coach came to me and said, "You're going to kick for us Saturday." So, was excited about it. So I kicked for, I think it was 3 or 4 games, but it was challenging because I was starting to play tight end more, and I had to get off the field to change my shoe. I had a special kicking shoe because I was a straight-on kicker. It had a square toe to the front of it. So I guess it was about the 3rd or 4th game I was getting more playing time. I ended up scoring my first touchdown at Clarion. So between being involved in the scoring play, I had to get up off the ground, run over the sidelines, change my shoe, and get back out on the field to kick the extra point. Well, everybody was in the huddle. They knew what the deal was as far as me having to do the shoe change. And they were literally going up to the line of scrimmage as I was getting back onto the field, to kick the extra point. Well, the following week, Coach Jacks came to me on Monday and said, this shoe thing isn't working out. He goes, "We're going to look at going with another kicker this week." And he goes, "You're going to get some more playing time at tight end." So that was the story about my kicking career at Clarion.
Yeah, and you and Gary McCauley were a fantastic duo, maybe ahead of the curve what they're doing now in football with 2 tight ends that were pass catchers in that era. Talk a little bit about that relationship and really, I guess, just the camaraderie on that team in the late 70s.
Well, like someone said earlier, when you're winning, teams are winning, boy, does that build, camaraderie, friendships, lifetime friendships. But Gary came in from North Allegheny a year behind me, got injured as we were lifting weights early that season, and that's another story. The guy said he never lifted a weight in his life, and I was like, how can you be a football player, and not lift weights? But he dislocated his shoulder and ended up redshirting that year. But when he did come back, boy, we were definitely a pair of tight ends to be reckoned with. Gary was a great pass catcher.
And you were part of really what was a golden era, pardon the pun, everybody, of Golden Eagle athletics in the late 70s. So much success across all athletic programs. What was that environment on campus like at that time?
Well, it was really, when I came to Clarion, I didn't realize how good all these other sports were. And at the time, they were competing. Wrestling was Division I. They had several national champions throughout the 70s, All-Americans every year. I know there were 2 seasons that they finished the season ranked number 4 and 6 nationally. I had a work-study job, and one of our jobs were to come down here, roll out the wrestling mats. So we'd be down here for some of these matches. Same thing, women gymnastics. The girls won 2 national championships, Division I, in the 1970s. I mean, just truly incredible. basketball team. Went to the national playoffs 2 years in the late 70s. And some of those guys here tonight were part of those teams.
You mentioned Coach Jacks. We would be remiss if we didn't talk a little bit about Coach Jacks' influence on you and on so many of the men from those teams from all eras that he was here. Talk a little bit about Coach Jacks.
Well, Coach Jacks, of course, is one of my favorites. I mean, he was so successful here. Some of you that don't know, when I arrived here in 1976, he had already put together 13 consecutive winning seasons in a row. He had won 1 state championship and I think 2 PSAC West titles and 2 Coach of the Year honors also. You know, he truly was a great individual. He put together a great coaching staff. Rich talked about that a little earlier. He hired Charlie Ruslavich and Dick Pay. They were teammates of his up at Penn State, and they were very close. And then he eventually hired Gene Soboleski, and I'm losing for the last, and Jim Weaver. Thanks, Bob. But truly, you know, a great coaching staff, and it was like family. I mean, those coaches were close. You could see that they were close. You know, it was just a great environment.
Dan, is there anybody you'd like to acknowledge here this evening?
Yes, I'd like to just take a minute. I'd like to acknowledge my family, my wife of 42 years, Sheree. My mother's here tonight, Donna Kohley. My children are here. My daughter, Julie, and her husband, Ben. My son, Daniel, and his wife, Sheree. And yes, my son, Dan, is married to a Sheree also, like myself. My son, Michael, and his wife, Brianne. My 3 grandchildren are here. Jack, Michael, and Wyatt, and my granddaughter, Grace. And I'd also like to acknowledge my brother Phil's here with his wife, Melanie, and my brother John with his wife, Lita. And I've got a host of friends and players, teammates that are here tonight. You know, it's just really awesome that all you came out for me. I love you all, you know.
Dan Kohley, everybody.